Hello and welcome to the 14th and final part of the Toulouse Abridged campaign. Last time we were absolutely stomping the Hafsid Sultanate. We fought a battle for Tabriz against the Abbasids and won, then gave it to someone else. We also fought some minor battles with the Abid Sultanate out in the desert, which didn't really achieve anything, but we got to use some new units. And now we're heading into a decisive battle for Isfahan as I start to invade the Abbasids more and looks like they're counter-attacking. This was a very standard battle. Basically our cav fought on the wings and the enemy spear line, which was about the same width as my spear line, just ran into us and we fought there normally, nice and easy to control. Their wild card is a couple of units of naphtha throwers over here on our left, and they actually did a pretty good job of leveling like two of our units with their thrown attacks. I was hoping to take them out with my crossbows, but you know, crossbows are not a ranged unit, so instead I dared to pull a unit over here out of a melee, even taking the losses, to go and attack the naphtha throwers, and that drove them away. On the right wing our cav won, and now we're driving forwards to attack the enemy's reinforcement archers that are coming in from their garrison army, and we're also going around to attack the back of the enemy's main line. In this fight, things went pretty well with our cav just ramming into the front of the enemy's skirmishing line, partially because they're arranged in a column which makes it hard for them to skirmish away in different directions, and partially because they're actually not all that good. Our general makes a nice rear charge, and really, we've got that main fight under control now. We can rear attack and rout pretty much everything along there. Here we are a bit later with all that happening, and now it's just a reinforcement army to deal with. You can see on the balance bar, we pretty much have this one in the bag, just need to finish them off. In the process, I did some stat checking. I was looking at some of my cav fighting with the archers, and I was like, yeah, we're actually killing these archers with our mounted sergeants and not getting routed ourselves. And indeed, at last we've encountered enemy archers that actually have low melee defense, so our cav can defeat them in a melee. This is incredible. Finally, a worthy opponent, an opponent that's balanced in the way I might expect. So I guess that's bad news for the Abbasid Caliphate. All the other minor factions are much less balanced and are thus much stronger. Anyway, we do rout that entire army, need to chase them down because there is a garrison on the field, so there's a chance for a siege draw-out. However, we do not get it. Somewhere a little squad of archers escaped, meaning we have to go on with the siege and auto-resolve those guys next time. But overall, a pretty big win, and yes, the Abbasid Caliphate seemed to be weaker than I expected, which means they're not much of a grand finale for the campaign, but I guess it makes my life easier, so that's something. We do go on and do that auto-resolve. Isfahan is captured. I didn't really want it. You can see I hesitate here to occupy the place, but there's no other viable option really, so we're just going to sit inside here, and this will have to be the new front line because we'll need to spend ages converting it before we can go on to the next place safely. Elsewhere, we're still stomping the Hafsid Sultanate, a stronger opponent, but they don't have any armies, and we have much more stuff over here, so they're going downtown fast. Here's my little army packed with a load of Flanders units, helping out Flanders with that siege just there. And we've also got another siege going. This is our mighty crossbow army. Couldn't find an enemy stack for them to fight, so instead, they're currently matched up against this town garrison. I said I didn't want to make this a siege attack because I don't think the experiment works as well. But that's what we got, so we're going to set up for that, but not right now. First, I needed to resolve this situation at Munich. I actually had another army come to support the stack of levy trash I sent to fight with the Duchy of Bavaria up here. Even with a second stack, the balance bar is not very good for some reason. Even though Munich barely has anything inside it, they're really strong. Perhaps these things are actually good units. The siege had been going on for a while because I forgot about this place for a few turns. That means the walls are in bad condition. They are walls, by the way, that are tall enough to have siege towers, but I've got only ladders because I didn't think that was going to happen, shame. Anyway, I do have catapults, so we spend the start of the battle just sitting around trying to take down some of the nearly destroyed bits of wall to get some breaches. Along the way we take out a whole load of their best units, their knights. That's helping out a lot, and you can see that balance bar suggests we're going to win this one. We're not going to focus too much on this battle because I want to finish the campaign in this part, so we'll zoom through it. We had another lucky break because most of the rest of their knights went and stood in a breach with their backs to us to defend it, so I just shot them with crossbows for a while. Their shields are on their backs. I wondered if that technically gives them a missile block chance from behind, but I don't think that's how the game works. I think it's just a look. Once we'd killed a load of those guys, the leader of the garrison came out to stand over here as well. I'm not sure why. The enemy was obsessed with having units out here with their backs to my crossbows. Looks like AI is having a bad day, and that's going to work to my advantage because I don't have to do anything. Handy. I did go and capture lots of bits of wall, but we took extreme losses to towers exploding and the towers shooting us in general there. Looks like we lost pretty much a full unit of crossbows when a corner tower exploded. But overall, we're going to win this one with sheer brute force at this stage, so nothing too much to worry about. Just takes a bit of time in real life. There was a long protracted fight to get in through that breach where the crossbows had been fighting, but ultimately it didn't matter because where our entrance wasn't contested, we were able to get units over to the capture point and capture it. So here we are a while later, still fighting all over the city, but we have won. With that, Munich is down, and this Duchy of Bavaria has been taught a lesson about not going to war with whoever it was we were trying to get them to go to war with. We lost one unit of levy crossbows, no worries about that, and I'm going to do a subjugation. So there we go, they have now been returned to the fold as my new vassal, and the Holy Toulousian Empire has been slightly reformed up here in Central Europe. We've still got another state to go after before we've completely got them all back though. I got Mecca back as a vassal. That will help out with our Islamic subjects, no doubt. The siege that was going on from Flanders that I was going to help out with has just ended for some reason. Now looks like they're standing there ready to help me. So we do a switcheroo, and now we're going to set up to attack the Abbasid Sultanate right there. There was another setup I did last time against the Abbasid Caliphate up at Ray. This army had them under siege for a while, and the balance bar ended up going far enough in our favour that we can just take it like that. And this is another case where we can't advance the front line, so I immediately went to the negotiation table, and I was able to get the rest of the Abbasids to surrender and become my vassal. So that is the end of that. We conquered about half the Caliphate, and the other half is now de facto controlled by us. All very good really, I think that went perfectly. Here's a little look at our overall map control. Looks like this world is going to be Toulousian by the looks of things. There are still some patches of resistance, but we'll look at the final map at the end of this part once some of those patches have been resolved. For now, we're going to take a look at this battle. It's time for our meme army of crossbows to storm those walls and act as our vanguard melee unit in order to prove their viability as the best all-round unit and perhaps the worst ranged unit in that they tend not to actually use their weapon. Well, we'll see. For this battle, we just need to run at the walls really. We've got plenty of ladders and we're going to attack in 3 groups. There's going to be a main group coming from the south right here. Annoyingly, you can't give them all of the order to advance at once. We have to individually target each one onto a point on the wall. You might have seen me just now also ordering a group to go around to the back of the town, down the east end of the map. And you've also got a couple of ladders going up the west over here as well. Both the east and west groups will not be very heavily contested, so it's mainly going to be a fight between my main group and whatever's on the wall in front of them. A lot of what the enemy have though are currently defending that gatehouse. I have men ready to go for the gatehouse, but I'm going to not run at them and allow them to get distracted first. To minimise losses, we're actually going to do some basic strategy rather than completely throw our men in there. There was the risk that our ladders would be taken out by the enemy's catapults. Luckily this one right here is glitched. There's another one near the gatehouse, but it was just firing at nothing and didn't hit any of our siege equipment. And here, the enemy's archers with their fire arrows, also a risk. Well, they've screwed it up as well. They're mainly set up to shoot into the town rather than out for some reason. And of course, the eternal Achilles heel of any Attila defender, you can't target siege equipment. So they don't stop our ladders. Their gates were already damaged from the siege. So our ram on the western road immediately opens up one entrance to the town. We've also got a ladder set up over there and it's uncontested. There was only space for one of the 2 ladders I took, so that's going to take a bit longer than expected. But the main fight is starting now. Our ladders have set up along the long front of the southern wall. The enemy have put some melee units up there to contest, and now it's time to see what we can do. I did start checking some of the actual stats, like right here where we're facing the enemy's regular melee unit. We are technically outclassed. Their defense is like double ours and they have some armor as well. I guess morale is actually our real problem because they can rout us without inflicting that much damage, and it looks like they might inflict that damage with those stats. The real stats though are of course on their light archers. Now there are some good stats. They have got a lot of melee defense, as mentioned before, about the same melee defense as knights, or even more than our knight units if I remember correctly. So nice and unbalanced. It seems like we might actually struggle on the wall. The units that are already inside are going to rush not only to go for the capture point, but to blow up some towers and take gates. Just be helpful in that general fashion. Now the next time I come back to check things on the wall, things are going pretty well. In parts where we haven't been contested, we can set up to look down over the wall with the crossbows where the enemy's cav are hanging around. In principle, we could be blasting down at them with bolts, and while our men are very unenthusiastic about doing that, sometimes they do actually shoot, and we are damaging them. As for the melees, well, as you can see, we're completely winning somehow with minimal losses, and I think that's because crossbow magic, or the enemy gave their things a move order and they all lost their famous melee defense and died as a result. Speaking of dying, looks like our men inside the town have attracted the enemy's heavy cav, so that's going to be problematic for them. But most of the cav are still hanging out near the walls, very slowly being shot by our massed crossbows. I've also got men going down the wall ready to attack that gatehouse, and with these slingers distracted, I can now somewhat safely move up the reserve to go and help out with this attack, although it's going to take them ages to gradually push that stuff over, so eventually they'll come and help out. In the meantime, the men I sent for the capture point have been killed, and these two units hanging around near the western wall are going to face a similar fate by the looks of things. One unit gets killed, the other unit is able to fight the enemy without tanking a charge first, and that makes us much more viable. Crossbows, as we've seen before, this very unit of crossbows in fact, can take out heavy cav if working together with another unit as a distraction, but on their own in melee, well, I'm not so sure. Still, they'll have to try their best. Looks like the rest of the heavy cav though have been gradually killed. Our massed crossbows did do something at range in an incredible twist, and again I didn't really see it happening, just like with their melee victory. I think if you just don't look at your crossbows, they will somehow win any fight. That appears to be the result of this experiment. We've also now finally got our eastern attack group into the town to help out. Came to foolishly look at this crossbow fight with the knights, and actually it's going okay. The knights are taking relatively heavy losses, and I think it's because our crossbows are using them as cover for the enemy's towers, so the towers might be helping us out in that fight. We've lost a crossbow unit with our assault on the gatehouse, so that's a shame, but we've got like 10 more to pile in there and see if they can make any progress. And back over with our experimental fight, we did eventually lose this melee, but the enemy cav unit's almost dead as well. If we had some more morale, we might actually have won in a sheer battle of attrition. So yes, it seems that stats don't even matter for crossbows, they just do okay in melee. Not really sure where this meme's coming from, but it seems to keep coming up again and again. Now I went for the capture point with a bunch of units. It was defended by some swordsmen. They were walking backwards and forwards in front of my crossbows. Perfect, I could just shoot them. The men are less than enthusiastic as usual. They are not interested at all in using their ranged weaponry. But luckily for them, the enemy just rout in terror, and that's the end of that. So we do successfully capture the town. It wasn't a free capture. We lost 3 units. That's because things that rout inside the town just get absolutely annihilated, so it's hard to get away after routing. Overall though, not that bad. I wonder how these guys would have actually done in a field battle. Probably worse actually, because standing on the wall helped us out quite a lot in that fight. Up in the Holy Toulousian Empire, we need to bring back in the Duchy of Saxony, the other part of the old HRE that refused to join our pointless wars. So we're marching through the snow, taking massive losses to get up there with the 2 armies that just did Munich. And we're even going to grab some vassal levies on the way to make it a little bit more Germanic themed. I got peace with the Teutonic Order, who I was at war with for reasons I forget, so they're now my vassal once again. With that siege I set up with my Flanders-ish army, I just brought over the crossbows to stand on the other side of the town, and with that we can easily auto-resolve our way in, and boom. This leaves only one Hafsid Sultanate territory, it's the one just to the south of that one. And here in the next turn, I believe, I got a peace deal with them and re-vassalized them. So there we go, Africa is back under our control, except actually for the Abbasids Sultanate's part. Then these guys declare war on me, one of my vassals off east, and a fairly large faction actually, attacks us and brings in some of the other smaller factions, including my puppet states, who I can't not ask to join the war, but they can choose to not join. So all of a sudden, we're actually at war in various directions over there. It looked kind of dangerous, but the other factions didn't really want to be in this, so some negotiation takes one of the factions out of the running right there. Then I went to speak to my old puppet state and made them into a vassal instead, which also takes them out of the war and means I get some cash off them, very nice. So 2 of the 4 factions we were suddenly at war with are gone, but there's still more we can do. First I was distracted by setting up our siege up in Saxony. First I brought in a stack to besiege the town. That doesn't look good, but we're doing the old siege block thing. We're just making sure the garrison and that first army can't help when my second army fights their second army, or not. They run away, and they run away in such a way that we cannot catch up to them this turn. So instead I just sat around. Then I came back to the negotiating table and got the big faction that just declared war on us to not only get peace but become my vassal again. So there we go. We basically bribed them there. That was a pretty bad precedent to set. The other smaller faction, for whatever reason, refused to go back into a peace deal or vassalage with us. So I sent the stack that was at Ray to go and attack one of their towns. We can almost do it even without siege equipment once our balance bar gets a bit better with a ram or something. That'll be fine, and we do have another army hanging around. Now, the Abbasid Caliphate in the end turn sequence decides to betray me as well. This isn't going very well. It seems our eastern vassals are slightly uppity. It's the same situation we just had really, but they're calling in even more people to the war. So again, we're all of a sudden at war in all kinds of directions all at once over there, and it's a vaguely dangerous looking situation. At least I can immediately do that siege I just set up by bringing in the other army from Baghdad, so no trouble there, one place occupied. Then we go back to immediately asking all the factions to actually not be at war with us, and we get some success. That's one region out of the running. But there are actually lots of enemy armies around, and we are under siege at Isfahan. That's the armies from that southern sultanate that declared war on us at first, who were already hanging around after the recent peace deal. Anyway, now back to action in Europe. The enemy's second army runs away when I challenge them again, and with that we pretty much have the strength to just take down the settlement with an auto-resolve. So we'll do just that, and once that's done we can subjugate them again. So just like with Munich, we'll recreate the vassal, but as a faithful part of our Holy Empire. Then we grab a nice purchase. It's the Empire of Nicaea, which I think is the faction that would posthumously be known as the Byzantine Empire, some fragment of it at least. So they're a nice historic faction to have on board. They held out for a long time, finally got the money to buy them. Looks like I'm trying to buy the Abbasids here as well, but they are not interested. We still don't have complete control of Africa, but really, who cares? At least I do get Oman out of the current war with us. That's helpful because they actually had some stacks coming towards us. And perhaps more importantly, the Abbasids, who started the most recent war, are also peaced out as well, so that's awkward for their allies. Now we're actually in a pretty safe position just at war to the south of our two new territories. That's why I'm moving my army from Ray down towards Isfahan, and we'll see it's going to come in useful in a second. And I do only mean 1 second, because here we are in the next turn. The Selgharad Sultanate brought 4 armies up to engage us at Isfahan. So time for another decisive battle for the fate of Isfahan, and one we shall treat as the decisive battle for the fate of this entire region. They've got 4 armies, but the last 2 are just a few units, so it's more like 3, and we've got 2 armies as well. Looks like a balanced engagement. The main thing it was a big engagement. The 2 lines of each army reached the edge of the map, as you can see on the minimap in the top right. That meant it was extra hard to micro actually, because we had so much stuff going on that I was mainly not looking at what was happening at any given moment. Like right there, when some cav wedge charged my swords in the main line. Luckily I think they were in the shield wall formation, giving them a bonus against charging units. They get extra mass or something, who knows what the mechanics specifically are. But they don't die, that's the point. Meanwhile, the enemy have a lot of jabs in this army, and a lot of their line was just jabs, so you can see there on my right, my cav are having some fun running out and attacking those jabs. The only thing really getting in my way is the enemy's cav, which is hanging around and sometimes blocking us, but for the most part things are okay, and we're taking out many a jav unit here and there, especially there on our right, where we're totally securing things and there's not much enemy cav action going on. Looks like there was some there, but we've easily surrounded and pounded them. Towards the centre, the enemy general was fighting on his own here at the front line, and I've got some naft throwers, so I carefully micro them to throw over the top of my line and into the enemy general. He immediately dies. That's good stuff. We tell our men to stop firing, and that's that. Now the enemy are debuffed for the rest of the fight, and really that fight's only just starting when it comes to the actual melee lines engaging. We've already done a lot of work taking out ranged units, but we're now going to be harried by the fact that the enemy's 3rd and 4th armies will be coming onto the field behind us, which makes all of our behind enemy lines cav action a bit less good. We're also bogged down in many places where our cav are fighting enemy cav, and we're trying to rely on numbers to win. most of the cav that went down on our right flank. And now they're stuck fighting the 3rd and 4th armies as I mentioned, so that's not ideal. We're going to be fighting some spear units, not charging, and generally not really helping with the battle. But the stuff on the left wing is still free to move, so we'll charge as best we can, try and get rid of those horse archers, and hit the backs of the units advancing up to take part in the main fight. And that main fight is going pretty well because we have a gigantic melee advantage in this battle due to the enemy's reliance on jabs, plus our NAFTA are having fun blowing apart the enemy's concentrated units. Obviously I can't really be looking at it because there's too much micro to be doing elsewhere, one of the great weaknesses of the Total War franchise, and indeed of me filming this not using replays, which is a shame. But anyway, it looks like the micro is happening and the enemy units are starting to fall. That balance bar is looking good. At the back there, the enemy's main army has now shattered, so with that done, it's in the bag. Just need to finish off the survivors all over the place. With so much stuff on the field being reinforcements, in principle we should go around killing them some more to grab some extra kills and finish off more units, but I didn't care enough, so we didn't, and we don't really need to anyway. Decisive victory. The enemy's operations near Isfahan are over. We lost not very much actually, and we can even replenish after the fight. So yeah, an absolute stomp. Once that's done, the enemy have retreated not very far away, so of course we just plough forwards and attack them again to finish everything off. Actually not everything, we kill 3 of the armies and a 4th army is left alive. Overall though, looks like the Sultan's plans are out the window, and with all of those losses and with how long it takes to recruit new armies, we'll actually now have a very long time to go on and capture some of their territory, including their capital, which is right here. Although that said, that's very hypothetical because I'm not going to do that. This is where I ended the campaign. But we're actually in a pretty good position to go on and punish our disloyal bribed vassals and maybe actually secure some long-term peace in the region. So yes, that's the end of that. There's a quick look at our final politics system. We basically still only had like 2 family members alive because they kept dying, as I've mentioned before. There was only one thing I wanted to achieve in this campaign that I didn't, and that was vassalizing England. Even throwing like 500,000 at them, they are not interested. So my theory that there's always an amount you can throw at the AI to make it do things for you may still be true, but it's more than I've been able to gather, and the end turn sequences take a real long time at this late point in the game, so I can't be bothered to save up money and try to find out what England's buying point is. This campaign is over. Let's take a look at the final map control. It's pretty total, as you can see. I guess it depends to what extent you consider a vassal to be part of our quote-unquote empire. I feel like when people draw maps of the Roman Empire at its height and things, it does include vassalized territory and quote-unquote allies of the empire that were sort of under their control. So by that standard, I'm going to say that I've conquered the entire map. And that's that. We did pretty well, just a few pockets of resistance. There's one other interesting overlay we can look at here, and that is religion. You can see Christianity is doing pretty well, or at least you can sort of see it. It's kind of confusing, but the reddish bits are the Catholics, the purplish bits on the right hand side of the screen, that is, are the Orthodox Christians, and the light greenish bits are Eastern Christians. So overall we have good map control. Then there's the white and dark greenish parts, that's the Muslims, the Shia and the Sunni. So they still have some presence on the map, but over time I'm sure we'd be able to kick them out. You actually can't get rid of, in this game, the quote-unquote local traditions religion source. Meaning if somewhere is kind of one religion, you can't ever convert the region fully to being a different religion. So we've probably done the best we can. I'm sure the Pope will be happy with us. And if he's not, then he's going to have a broadsword at his neck, obviously, because that's how we roll in the extremely holy post-Roman Empire of Toulouse. Now with the campaign over, there's just one thing left to do, and that is play a game of who is the world's oldest man. We have the same glitch in this campaign that I got in my last Attila campaign, where sometimes faction leaders who don't have heirs become immortal because the politics system screws up for some of the AI factions. And lots of factions seem to have this problem. There are lots of very old fellows in the world, but after looking through everyone, Venice is the overall winner. At 192, Grimaldo here is as old as you like. And as the reward, the prize for being so old, we can actually give him a box of gold, a feature I never really use in these games, but you can gift other factions money, which sometimes makes them like you. In my experience, it doesn't do anything, which is why I don't use it. But in this case, they seem to be becoming extremely favourable towards us. Maybe it works really well in this game or in this mod. Who knows? Anyway, well done for being old. That's the end of the campaign. I was poking around seeing if there's anything interesting to look at, and I noted we've actually got enough Islam in our faction that we can convert to Islam. You have to have a certain percentage of your population being a religion for the game to let you become that religion as your state religion. So that would be phase 2 of this campaign, I think, converting to Islam and then fighting back against the Christians with a blade at the Pope's throat, of course. I looked through the stats list to see if there's anything interesting. The only really notable thing was our kill-death ratio. We absolutely killed it, literally. 1,300 and something units killed for fewer than 100 units lost. Of course, that doesn't take into account troops lost, only units lost, so constantly depleting and refilling a unit doesn't count as losses in that regard. So overall, we actually would have lost a lot more than that. Anyway, as I've mentioned before, this is the end of this campaign. Thank you very much for watching. I think it was really over by the time we took Iberia, but we did see a few interesting things for playing on, so that's something. The next thing I want to do after this is play Shogun 2 as the Ikko Ikki with the Master of Strategy mod to change up a whole bunch of things about it. I was previously going to play Empire Total War as the Mongol Descendant faction that I forget the name of, basically the Horse Archer faction in the top right of the map, because I thought that could be a fun and interesting take on Empire, but then I remembered that I like Shogun 2 more, so I'm going to do that first. I'll probably go back to Empire Total War after that, once we've had some fun annoying everyone as the Ikko Ikki, who are basically the yellow turbans of the Sengoku Jidai era. Well, you'll see. Hopefully that campaign will start just a few days after this one ends. Need to get on and actually play it, I suppose. Until then, thank you very much again for watching, and I will see you next time for some Abridged campaign action.